Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting for Wednesday, February 26th at 9:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. As usual, we'll start with our land acknowledgement. We are gathering on lands that have been home to our First Nations people from time immemorial. We acknowledge that what we now call Richmond Hill is on the treaty lands and territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Mississauga and Chippewa nations of the Williams Treaty. We also recognize that we are on part of the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat. We would also like to acknowledge all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island who now reside in the city of Richmond Hill. We are committed to rebuilding constructive and cooperative relationships. So with that said, we would now ask if you can please stand for our national anthem. Okay, thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is public forum, and we have the Ian McMillan here my mouth's not working today, regarding a request to have aquafit classes relocated back to Bayview Hill Pool. So Ian, I know you're here live and in person, so come on up and you've got 5 minutes to address council.
I'll try to keep it to script. This isn't my thing to do, so.
Well, we're very friendly people, so it's all fine. Just no problem.
It's not my shtick. I'm Ian McMillan. I've lived in Richmond Hill for the past 30 years, been a constant user of the city's facilities and programs for pretty much the entire time we've lived here. Alarm was 6:45 yesterday morning to get up for 7 o'clock for spring registration and stuff. So I've been a regular aquafitter for the past 7+ years since my retirement, an occasional one before then, even during the partial opening during the COVID shutdowns. I'm here today to represent about 50 to 60 regular participants in aquafit classes at the Bayview Hill Community Center. When I refer to we, I'm referring to aquafitters. And when I say you, I'm referring to the city. I'm not directing this at any individuals whatsoever. This past December, a decision was made to move the 6 weekday aquafit classes at Bayview Hill to the wave pool, a decision that was not received well with the affected participants. The day we heard about the class was in the pool, and the class was pretty much done. Everyone was just standing around bitching and complaining to each other for the rest of the 45 or 50-minute class. Nobody was happy with it. We immediately jumped into action, sending emails, creating a petition of about 60 names to try to get this decision reversed, as nobody wanted to go to the wave pool. While the wave pool is a fantastic facility that the city should be proud of, it is not suitable for aquafit classes. For aquafit, we are encouraged to be at chest to shoulder depth in the water to attain maximum benefit. In the wave pool, you're pretty much just waist deep or you're standing on a steep slope. Have you ever done aerobics in the steep slope in a pool? It's bordering on dangerous. It would be like doing calisthenics on the toboggan hill at the library in the rain. The response we got from our emails was that classes used to be held there. Everybody is thrilled that the wave pool classes are back. The wave pool was our most popular classes. We had complaints that the Bayview was too busy. The wave pool is a larger pool, if you want to count square footage, if you want to be knee deep. Of the 40-odd people that I've talked to, not one expressed the slightest desire to return to the wave pool. You have been getting moderate numbers at the wave pool now because you stopped classes at Bayview. Yes, classes were previously held at the wave pool. I know, I attended them. There were no other options. But they used to prescribe smoking for hysteria. Because they did it before doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. We had some very large numbers of participants at Bayview last spring and summer. There were up to like 50 to 60 people in each class. Classes were Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, 2 classes back to back. It was madness. In fact, there were too many people in my mind for an effective, safe class. I stopped going until the fall when the numbers got more reasonable. In my mind, this indicates a requirement for more classes. The summer overcrowding was due to the fact that they were down to 1 class from 2, due to summer camps. We fully understand that. We may not like it, but we understand it. Darn kids. We were offering the olive branch when they offered a single class at Bayview Monday mornings and a slot on Tuesday and Thursday morning without an instructor, as you cannot find instructors. That wouldn't have been a problem if you didn't lose 2 instructors because they refused to teach at the wave pool. The single Monday classes had great numbers, just showing how many people wanted Bayview over the wave pool. The first Monday at the wave pool had 2 participants. That number slowly increased to about 10, with the Bayview classes close to 50.
No, you got 1 more minute.
Dwindling down to 25 to 35. The Wednesday classes at wave pool, I'm told, have been around 15 to 20 for the Wednesday and Friday classes. Bayview regularly had about 30, 35 people in classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Presently, you're looking at 20 to 25 participants Wednesday, Friday at the wave pool, compared to the 50 or 60 that were attending Bayview. I am aware that there are some Bayview folk attending classes at Elgin West, and the number have been even higher. The single class is at the latter of the 2 slime slots we used to have. I have been to every class so far this session. That earlier slot had 1 single private lesson. Well, the previous wave pool or Aquafit earlier slot has 1 person there doing private lessons. I have not attended any of this.
Your time is up, but just if you can just wrap up, that's fine.
I guess you get the gist.
No, I mean
of what I'm saying.
just finish off.
This isn't just one grumpy old man talking. It's a bunch of grumpy old senior citizens and some not quite senior citizens.
Now, can I just ask if everybody in the audience is okay with that terminology? Because you could be in a lot of trouble now, Ian. Okay, no, thank you very much. We appreciate you, Ian, coming out and all of the beautiful senior citizens who are here in the audience as well, joining us. No, thank you very much. We'll take a look at that. Okay, so moving on, the next item.
Stick around.
You're welcome to if you want. We've got some really exciting things that we're going to be talking about in the next little while. But you know, you're welcome to leave if you wish. This item is not on the agenda, so if you've got other things you'd prefer to be doing, then that's okay. But you're certainly welcome to stay. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is council announcements. So do we have anybody with council announcements today? Okay. Seeing none, I've got a few. I do want to recognize that Ramadan begins on Friday, and I want to just extend our thoughts to those celebrating Ramadan in the next month. And this is a time of a sacred time of fasting and spiritual reflection, and we do, as council, want to wish best wishes for a blessed and generous Ramadan. So Ramadan Mubarak for all of those that are celebrating. I do want to say that my mind has been going lately to thoughts of the SAP is running. I think now that the weather is getting a little bit warmer, and I just wanted to ask anybody watching that's interested in maple syrup. We are going to be having our annual Maple Syrup Festival on April the 12th this year. So yeah, save the date for that, and more information on that should be coming up soon. I'd also like to invite people to save the date for our first, excuse me, sustainability speaker series that we're having in partnership with the United Nations University Institute for Water, Health, and the Environment. We're going to be having a number of different topics to be discussed with some of the staff at the university, United Nations University. I'm really looking forward to it. There's some really good information there, and I think I'm eager to get that shared with the city and have some conversations around sustainability. So the first event is on March the 18th at 6:30 at the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts, and there is on my website you can register for that, and all council is certainly welcome to attend as well. Today is Pink Shirt Day, and an annual event against bullying in Canada. A number of people will be wearing pink shirts today to raise awareness about bullying. And you know, Pink Shirt Day is another example of a homegrown initiative that was started here in Canada in 2007. And last but not least, I do want to I know this is a little bit late, but I'm still in the afterglow of this, that I wanted to congratulate Jordan Binnington especially, and Connor McDavid as well, and all of Team Canada for an amazing game last week in the Four Nations face-off. I have to say, I mean, I realize that Connor McDavid was born here in Richmond Hill, lived here for a short period of time, and then we kind of lost him to Newmarket, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. But Jordan Binnington was born and raised and played some of his hockey here in Richmond Hill. And at the very beginning of that game, they were introducing the opening lineup, and Connor McDavid was introduced as from Richmond Hill. That made the mayor very proud. And then the very next person that was introduced was Jordan Binnington, who was also from Richmond Hill. So that was a very awesome thing to happen. And it was not quite as awesome as the outcome of that game. That was definitely awesomer. So with that being said, the next item is introduction of emergency and time-sensitive matters. And Councillor Davidson, you had one.
I do have one. Is the protocol for the clerk to put it on the screen and I read it, or no? Oh, I asked to have this brought to council and approved?
No, it just needs to, what we need to do right now is decide whether we're going to be adding it to the agenda. So if you can just let us know and the public know what it is that you're looking to do, that would be great.
Okay. I would like to bring forward a motion. Can I just
Go ahead.
Skip to the therefores?
Sure.
Okay. I would like to have a motion that council during this meeting discuss the impact of the significant snowfall in February 2024, that staff further be directed to prepare a detailed report for presentation at the March 19th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting, outlining a comprehensive study of the snow removal efforts undertaken, including road, sidewalk, windrow clearing operations, challenges and encountered due to the volume and frequency of snowfall, the effectiveness of deployed equipment and personnel, and the financial impacts and budgetary considerations.
Okay, thank you. So we need to get we got a mover, obviously. We need a seconder for introducing this to the agenda. So Councillor Shu, any discussion on this? Go ahead, Councillor DePaul.
I'm not sure of the time sensitive nature. I think in order to add something to the agenda, it needs to be a significant financial impact to the city, or something that just simply can't wait. And I don't understand why this type of request would fall into that category.
Okay. Are you directing that question to anybody, or is that just a statement?
Well, I guess the mover is the only one who can answer. Is there anyone on staff who, or any reason that I'm not aware of, that makes creates an emergency here?
I think it's probably best to the mover. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Chair. The time-sensitive issue is that it's still an enormous problem in many of our neighborhoods, and we can talk about it in 3 weeks. But I think residents have been certainly asking me, and I don't think I'm alone, for answers to questions. And I think this is an opportunity for council to get answers from staff and for the public to hear the answers rather than the continual emailing staff and back and forth. And all of us are probably doing the exact same thing. I can't speak for other councillors. And there's also situations where people in this community believe there's still a health and safety issue with snow that's still there and hasn't been removed. So I feel this is an opportunity for us to discuss it while it's in the moment. It's not of much value after 3 weeks down the line when maybe the snow has melted.
Okay,
Councillor.
well, I do respect the fact that it is of an emergency nature, that the snowfall that we had and the ongoing efforts to address, and I'm sure there's things that need to be discussed, but I'm concerned about the precedent of coming forward. I'm going to vote against introducing the motion. I don't see any reason why we need to discuss it without notifying the public. That's the thing about introducing things the day of a meeting. I think it's always best if the public's involved, unless we just simply can't avoid it. And this may be a very good thing to discuss today, but we would be setting a precedent, and I wouldn't want us to every Wednesday before council to be just willy-nilly putting on issues that we'd like to discuss without going through the proper process of being added to the agenda. So just my thoughts, and be subjected to the will of the vote of council, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion, Councillor Silovitz?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Davidson and Regional Councillor DePaulo. While I understand what Councillor DePaulo is saying, and I appreciate that 100%, I believe in this specific instance, we are dealing with something that has created a lot of turmoil for whatever reasons, good or bad, within the city from our residents. And I believe that a discussion now, bringing this forward, would be prudent. I don't believe that there should be this part of the motion that says to bring a report forward. But I believe that a discussion here would be very good, because we do have our director with us of our public works operations, and perhaps he can answer some questions that are bothering us or bothering residents in a very good collaborative forum, which is council. So I will support it in this particular instance, simply because of the background circumstances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll just quickly weigh in. I mean, I actually do understand what Regional Local Councillor DePaulo is saying, and I actually I do agree with what you're saying. I think, emergency and time-sensitive matters are things that are put on the agenda for a good reason, because there isn't enough time to be, because of the procedure, there isn't time to get the word out in the public. But I think in this particular case, I really do think that there is a need to have a discussion. I think we've actually had, the staff has done a great job on the snow clearing, but there are some questions that are lingering in the minds of a number of people that I've heard from. And I think this is an opportunity to, however imperfect perhaps, but to get some information to council and also on the public record about the snow clearing operations. And I think it would be to everybody's benefit in the end to be able to have that conversation. So I'll be okay with it, although I do understand what Regional Councillor DePaulo is saying. But I think in this case, I'm going to be okay with having this discussion. So Councillor Davidson, you want to add something?
Yes, thank you. And through Mr. Chair, I completely respect Councillor DePaulo's comments, and I believe democracy can only function with rules. But this wasn't willy-nilly. This has been a 2-week issue, and The only reason why the report is there, Councillor Silovitz, is because there's no such motion where you can just say, hey, let's talk about this. So if we all feel or if I feel satisfied that our questions have been answered, we can, I'll certainly amend it to remove the report part. But honestly, there's no other mechanism to bring this forward. And I completely agree with you. We have to protect the protocols, but there's no way to sort of be current and deal with something that's right in front of us except emergency motions. So I totally respect your opinion and I respect the sanctity of an emergency and time-sensitive matter, but I also feel like this council and the city needs to react at the moment, and this is our opportunity to do it.
Okay, thank you. Local Councillor DiPaolo.
And then, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to quickly clarify, I don't think this was brought forward in a willy-nilly manner and it's not an insignificant issue. I'm just concerned that, of course, that the precedent might be there for other things that are brought forward in a willy-nilly manner.
Yeah, and I think that's a good message. So, generally speaking, so, okay. All right, so we have a motion in front of us to add that member motion as an item that's emergency and time sensitive to the end of the agenda. So all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to adoption of the agenda. We have a number of items today that could be passed on consent. 15.2 will be pulled. I'll have something to say about that later. We've got a member motion, and actually, oh, sorry, 15.3, I need somebody to pull, or I'll give up the chair and pull it if I have to. Okay, Councillor Davidson. Okay, all right, so anything else needs to be pulled at this time? Yes. Do you want to do that first? Man, you get so sensitive. Okay. All right, let's adopt the agenda. All those in, so we have a mover was Councillor Silovitz, seconder, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. All right. Yes, Mr. Clerk?
Just to clarify, I'm assuming in adopting the agenda, we were also rescheduling that presentation?
Oh, yes, correct. We had a presentation coming up for the United Way, and apparently there's been a problem with one of the United Way people coming today due to a car breaking down. So we're gonna have to reschedule that. So we'll take that off the agenda. Okay. All right, so anything other than that needing to be pulled?
I have no idea.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Davidson's gonna pull 15.3 for me.
Sorry.
15.2 is pulled anyway. 16.1 is pulled. But everything else then could be adopted on agenda, right? Or on consent.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor, I hate to interject, but could we do disclosures of pecuniary interest before that, please?
You are really picky today. Okay, anybody disclose any pecuniary interest? Okay, none. Thank you. All right. So adoption of previous council minutes. We have two council public meeting on February 11th and council meeting on February 12th. Okay, Councillor Silovitz, Councillor Shu, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, so now identification of items requiring separate discussion. Anybody else? All right, so I need a motion to adopt the rest. That's 15.1 through actually all the 15.1s. And 15.4, and do you want to do the bylaw now? The two, okay, and 18.1 all the way through 18.10. Okay, Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo, seconded by Councillor Silovitz. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. All right. Public hearings, we have none. Presentations, we will reschedule that. We have no delegations today. All right, so the first item that we're going to be talking about then is 15.2. Is that right, Mr. Clerk? All right, so we had a good discussion on this last week at Committee of the Whole. And I really appreciate that. And I've tried through that, after that discussion, I've called members of council to try to figure out if we could come up with a more focused way moving forward based on the discussion that we had. And so I put together, I've had that discussion with members of council, and I'm going to propose putting forward a motion that is a slight variation of one of the options. So Mr. Clerk, if you could put that up. And I won't give up the chair for this, but I've got Councillor Silovitz said she would move this for me. And essentially, this is a slight variation of what we were talking about before. The waste management fee for the BIA, this motion is recommending be set at $365, which is half of what it will cost, but the fee will be updated annually through the tariff of fees to facilitate a phase-in of the full cost recovery, if that's what council chooses the next time we do the tariff of fees approval. And then D, that the super mailbox recycling program be deferred in its termination for a year till the 2027. I think what's necessary here before if that's what council chooses to do, is to remove those boxes, is we need to start up a public awareness campaign to try to get people to understand that they need to take their ad mail home and not be littering. And I believe if we do that aggressively enough, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I think we would probably make enough of a difference that that the cost of those super mailboxes, now that we've had this change in the Blue Box program, would be something that we could save the money rather than having to spend that every year going forward. So it's up to council. I mean, I want to still have the discussion about this, but I think this, from what I've heard from speaking to councillors in the past week, I believe this is a good place to at least get started in our conversation about this. So, Councillor Silovitz, you said you would move that. I need a seconder for it before we get the conversation started.
Next to you, Joe.
Regional Local Councillor DePaulo. So, Councillor Silovitz, you want to get started?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will indeed move this. And I want to thank you for the discussions you had with myself, which I'm sure was repeated with all members of council. And I also want to thank our staff for their continued input and discussion around this matter, which incorporates the entire city. So it's something that we have to bring into policy because of provincial government policies and regulations. So I will definitely move it, and I fully agree with you and support. So the difference is C, that a waste management fee of $365 be implemented in 2026 for businesses in the BIA that will be receiving municipal waste collection, and that this fee be reviewed and updated annually through the tariff of fees process to facilitate phase into full cost recovery. I believe that is exactly what we should be doing. And then D, that the city's super mailbox recycling program be terminated effective January 1st, 2027, and an aggressive public awareness campaign be implemented in 2026 to prevent ad mail littering when the recycling bins are removed. And as much as I would like to have recycling bins at every single super mailbox, that's just not effective and efficient, and we cannot do that. It's not possible. The city cannot undertake that. So we have to move to a different. We have to move on a different path, and I do believe that our residents are sensitive enough and savvy enough to want to do whatever they can to help us with this particular problem. So I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward, and I will absolutely motion it. And I I look forward to the changes that are coming, changes that have been in the air for many, many, many years, but that we now have to approach and deal with in a legitimate fashion within the municipality. So I'm good with that, and thank you very much. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Seconder, Regional Local Councillor DePaulo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really like this motion. It addresses all the concerns that I had last week. The changes, I think are necessary. And I know there's varying opinions here on council, but I really believe that this service has to be implemented in the BIA, in the downtown core, the historic downtown. I do think that the cost that's going to be implemented is going to create some reaction with the businesses, and I think we have to monitor that and see what we're going to do with the fee. Splitting the cost is a good way to start, and we'll see how that works as we go along. I was concerned about terminating a program and taking away a service that had historically been offered in terms of the current program. But now this motion gives 2 years to soften the impact on those residents that are going to lose their blue boxes. And but we just can't offer the service of 300 plus blue boxes that are collected some other way than our typical waste collection. And I've since our committee of the whole meeting learned that any receptacle being placed at the super mailbox is just inviting all garbage to be discarded, and not everyone's going to simply use it for letters, or they might use it for any number of things, and it's too difficult to manage. But an opportunity for every single community to on a voluntary basis clean up the super mailbox. I mean, we need to have residents, communities taking ownership and working together and volunteering. I know that the prevailing attitude is I pay property taxes and I deserve every service, but this is just too costly for the city to run, but extremely easy, relatively easy for a community to monitor. Put a blue box and take turns being responsible for just putting it on the end of your driveway, for somebody collecting it. It's something that communities can come together and easily do, but way too expensive and way too cumbersome for the city to take on. So I like the motion as worded, Mr. Mayor, and the fact that my biggest concern was that there be an aggressive public awareness campaign, and that's also included in the motion, that we really get out there and let people know that whatever's in their mailbox is their responsibility, and if it doesn't make it back to their home or to a proper receptacle, that it's littering, and nothing less, and it's not acceptable. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask if we can vote separately on C. As I argued last week, it's unfair, I think, for taxpayer dollars to support the blue box collection of one particular group of businesses in the city of Richmond Hill. Businesses all over are paying for their blue box, and I understand the physical limitations of this particular area with accessibility of trucks, but they're going to have to solve that anyway, either way. So I really don't think it's fair that tax dollars be spent to support a specific group of businesses. And I think this amendment is even a little more loose than last week. I thought we said at the very least they would be full up paying within the next year, but now it's going to be reviewed annually. So I just find this whole section unfair to the many other businesses that have not only been paying their own blue box all along, but we'll continue to do so. And I'm sorry, I wish the BIA businesses all the success in the world, but it's a private business that cannot be supported by public funding, in my opinion. So I would like to pull that for separate vote, and thank you.
Okay. The next person is Councillor Thompson, right?
Thank you very much. I agree with Councillor Davidson that we should vote separately on item C and probably on item D as well. Not necessarily for the same reasons, though. Looking at the BIA, it appears that, you know, the way this is written, we've already decided that we got to get them to full cost recovery. So I'm kind of curious as to why there would even be a review if we've already determined it, that this is what it has to be. So why provide a review in a year's time? It's either you're saying it's going to be full cost recovery or it's not, you know. I look at it that these particular individuals were thrust in a position, as was the city, through no fault of their own. You know, that this all arrived absolutely through no fault of their own. But the problem that I see is that these particular businesses have no other options. We're the only game in town for them. And we're basically mandating the situation. So I have some difficulty with that. I agree that maybe we could be reviewing this again in a year's, come next year. But I don't like the wording where it says to facilitate phase into full cost recovery, because that's saying we've already decided that we're going to get everything out of you guys. I have difficulty with that. In regards to the recycling program, I guess I need to ask, the mailboxes. I guess I need to ask a question about how long does it take to put a ad campaign together? Because it seems to me we're 10 months away from January 1st, 2026 right now. So I'm kind of curious why we're waiting a whole nother year. So I guess my question to staff would be, how long would it actually take to put a ad campaign together? And how long does that ad campaign have to run in order to make it effective? Those would be my questions.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So with the January 1st, 2026 implementation, which was the original staff recommendation, we were planning to start working on that right away and implementing it. So we would still proceed with that. We would probably have things ready for early in the year, if not before.
Okay, so to me, I don't see the necessity to push this out another year. I think that we should, if we've already decided that this is the way we should be going, and I agree, we should be removing it from the super mailboxes, then I don't see why we would wait. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. The next person is Councillor Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also support what Councillor Davidson said, to have a separate vote for condition C and D. And regarding the condition C, it's necessary to show more details how the city to facilitate phase in to full cost recovery, like how many phases we will have, and like how much for the first year, and how much increase gradually for the next year, something like that, because sometimes details does matter. Through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so that that is the way staff are interpreting this amendment, that we would review it each year in the tariff of fees, and through the operating budget, there would be a recommendation of how it's phased in, because you could phase it in over 5 years, you could phase it in over 2 years, you could phase it in over 3 years.
So that means we don't have any decision right at this moment, how many phases or the details.
No,
Okay.
that's the way that this is worded is that we started at $365 and then, you know, chances are, based on what I've spoken to counselors about, is that there would be a willingness to see this go to full cost recovery, but that's up to a future decision as to how quickly this happens.
Okay.
So, but, you know, it's up to council to decide.
Okay. My next question is, if the BIA is grant an exclusive arrangement for the blue box collection by the city, would other retail business in similar situation also be eligible for the similar services for the blue box collection as well on a case-by-case basis, based on the principle of fairness?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. This would be exclusive for the businesses in the BIA that are currently receiving recycling service because they're in a unique situation where there is no other option for them. They truly, the city picks up their recycling because we don't allow other trucks to stop on the road in front. They don't have access in the back. They can't take their recycling home because it's meant to be business pickup. And they can't just not recycle because that would be a contravention of the waste bylaw. So this is truly the only option for them right now. We would have to change something else to give them another option.
So that means there are no any other business environment like this in the BIA? No, absolutely no. Just want to make sure that there's no any other business in similar situation.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that is a good question. We have taken a preliminary look at the addresses that are involved, and we will be vetting them further to make sure that we're capturing the right ones. We will ensure that.
Okay, for those, some business located within a plazas or mall where the recycling collection is typically handled by the management office, will this new policy impact those businesses?
To you, Mr. Chair, I think you're talking about ones outside of the BIA?
So, yes, outside BIA, but within the mall and the plazas.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. So this only affects ones in the BIA. Everything else outside the BIA remains status quo for businesses.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's all my comments. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to remind my colleagues that, like, this is the time that we're going to be making a decision. And if there are changes and amendments to any given motion in front of us ever, you are free to make those amendments. So instead of just, you know, criticizing some of the aspects of this, if you feel that there's a better way to go, then it's okay to amend it. But what I would say is that we do not want to come into a situation where one of these separated items gets turned down with no direction to staff. So I would encourage us to use our time wisely here to make amendments as we feel necessary in order so that at the end of this process, there is direction given to staff as opposed to a vacuum of direction. So this is not a theoretical discussion. Okay, Councillor, who's next? Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm thinking about D. I like the idea of, that's what I exactly said last week, that I need another year. But I'm not sure that if we should be terminating effective January 1st, 2027. My thinking is I would like to let the next council to decide on this so that we let it status quo for another year. Instead of starting 2026, we start those aggressive public awareness campaign. I need a little bit of time to think about that, but let me go to C first. So C, you know, as I said many times before, is the optics. I agree with Councillor Davidson. But my question is actually, you know, we got a correspondence from the BIA and they have a board meeting and they said they can't afford it. So I think my first question is, so from what I'm seeing in C is that we subsidize this 50% and ask them to pay for the other half. Through Mr. Mayor, am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what if they refuse to pay? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the plan would be to put it on the tax roll, so they would have to pay.
Interesting. Okay, so they're asking a full recovery. We're still insisting subsidizing half and ask them to pay the other half. And every year during the budget process, they need to come and present to us their budget for council to approve. So do we expect the other half of the fees would be in that budget for council to approve?
No.
Through you, Mr.
No,
Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are two different things. There's the budget the BIA has for their own operations, which I think is the budget you see every year in the operating budget, one thing. This is a waste management fee that would be applied to their individual properties and put on the tax roll for their individual properties. So they're two separate things.
Thank you. Okay, well, the way I'm seeing it is they're not going to be happy either way. And my next question is, why is it related to the tariff of fees process? Through Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, because the tariff of fees is the complete listing of the fees that the city charges. So we felt that this would be the correct place to put it. It's reviewed annually and through the operating budget. So it would be consistent with being reviewed annually, and it's part of the fees that we charge.
Okay, but at the end game is to have full cost recovery. So I'm trying to understand. So are we trying to not charge them anything, or we gotta charge them with 365 times 2? Sorry, I apologize for my.
No, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So the idea is right now they pay nothing and they get recycling collection for nothing. In the first year, we estimate our costs to be double the amount that's here, right? So this is 50% of the cost. So in the first year, we're going to charge them 50% of the cost to recover some of it. And then each year after that, we're going to propose a number in the operating budget to increase it over several years to be up to 100%. So eventually they're paying the full cost.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, but sorry, I still can't support this unless we include those non-eligible sources, like churches and the nonprofit organization, because we're using taxpayer money to subsidize businesses, but but not the nonprofit and the churches. Is tough for me. I'll say for a second round. Thank you for your time.
Okay. All right. Councillor Tree.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through Mr. Chair, just want to echo a few things. So the reality here, or the factor we are seeing here, is by current bylaw, city does not allow any other waste trucks to stop either on the Young Street or at the backyard so far, right? So this is our bylaw, they won't allow there. Look at the size of that 88 business. If cities stop collecting their waste, if they ask their own to pursue different waste management, it's gonna be everyone has different timeline, right? If I put AM, maybe 7 AM, another one put 7 or 8 AM, the entire street will be packed up with waste garbage if we allow that way. So different time have different line. It's gonna be really a mess. The second one I was seeing is because
if some business cannot find out their waste or their recycles, and there's no place to put. If they put garbage bags, and then we are city forcing them using the garbage bags to collect their recycle, and we are forcing them to do the illegal things here as well. So I don't know if there are any good solutions here, but so far that's realities. City one side don't allow any other trucks parking either at front of Young or at the back end of other streets, or there is no space at all for some business to deal with that type of things. Another one is we're forcing them to put their recycles in the garbage can, and this is going to be a challenge for us because we're forcing them to do the illegal things as well. So if any counselor has good suggestions, yeah, you can just bring up. Let's talk about it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? On the first round, we're gonna have a second round. Okay, I actually have a lot to say now. Okay, first of all, I just want to just to round out this conversation, I want to just say, none of this is being done because this is what we wanted to do. It's being done because of a change in provincial policy, which I've said at committee of the whole, I don't agree with. I don't think this is being done in the best way, but that's water under the bridge. Keep in mind, everybody, that we are saving 107,000. It's not a lot, and it's not. In fact, it's not enough. I think we should be able to save more than that, but that's the provincial policy. But of the money that we're saving, it will more than cover the costs that are being proposed in this. Now, granted, we're still subsidizing. I mean, that's not untrue, but we are. It's not going to be on the tax rate because we are saving money, and at least for the 1 year, we're going to use those savings in order to make a smoother transition into this program, in my mind. The other thing is, and this is a question, I just want to clarify this. This $365 is a per property charge. If three businesses are in the same property, I mean, actually, it's the property owner that's paying the money, not necessarily the businesses, although the property owner will distribute it to the businesses. But to be clear, if three businesses are sharing $365, theoretically, the property owner will probably end up charging the business only $100. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. The fee is per property. So we have a list of addresses in the downtown core that currently receive service, and the discharge would be for each one of those addresses on Yonge Street.
Right. So to be clear to the BIA, even at the full pop, this is not $700 per business. It's $700 per property. What I'm proposing here as a phase-in is $365 per property, which is really, in most businesses, most property in the downtown core, it's divided up amongst a number of businesses. The one I keep thinking about, there's at least three businesses in that property, and in some cases there may be even more. Is that correct?
There is, through you, Mr. Chair, there is some properties where there's multiple businesses, and then there's some where there's just one business per address.
Right. Okay. All right. As a small business owner in my past life, I will tell you, I realized that, being potentially charged $765 all in one pop is a lot of money. And especially in the times that we're in and in the times that we're likely going to be in the next little while, I'm okay to give the BIA this amount. It isn't entirely fair because you're right, there are other businesses that are not getting this subsidy, but the other businesses are not in the unique situation that the BIA are in, that we have to give them recycling services, or because if we don't, due to the waste bylaw and our waste pickup bylaw, or maybe that's the same bylaw, I'm not sure, they don't have a choice. And we can't be forcing them to throw the recycling material in the garbage because frankly, it's illegal. It's also not environmentally responsible. So that's the rationale for the phase-in of the BIA amount. And I mean, in my mind, it is an imperfect solution in an imperfect problem, but I think it's the best that we've got. I've left it so that it's up to council in the next tariff of fees bylaw after this gets started to determine whether in fact we go the full distance and we charge the full amount. If somebody wants to make an amendment to that, then feel free to do so. The second one is the recycling program at super mailboxes. When that program didn't cost us very much money, I thought it was an okay idea. And, you know, it's not perfect either, because it's really encouraging people to not bring their ad mail home to a blue box program that doesn't cost us anything. But we were having trouble at certain super mailboxes because likely, it's not very many people, but a couple of people were throwing their material on the ground. So I really do believe that there is a way to change behavior, and it'll take some time. And if the motion goes through as it stands, we'll delay the removal of those super mailbox recycling bins to a point where we'll have had an opportunity to develop a program to encourage people not to litter. And it's in many ways, that program will be a peer pressure campaign where we'll be having the vast majority of people who want to live in a clean and litter-free neighborhood pressure those that are causing the problem to stop doing that and change their behavior. And it won't be perfect. I guarantee there will still be people that will be littering, but I really do believe that we can make some headway on that if we have this program and it's effective, and we'll have the time to do so. So that's the rationale for D. Now, if people disagree with that on council, that's fine. Then make some amendments and propose some changes. But what we don't want to see happen at the end of all of this is for C or D to be defeated, because then there will be no direction to staff, and staff needs direction in order to do something. It's up to council what, but we need to give staff that direction. So we have one more round to go, and we do have a few people that have already asked to speak. So we've got, so far I've got Councillor Silovitz, Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo, and Councillor Davidson. Is there anybody else? Councillor Thompson? Who else? Councillor Liu? Anybody else? Okay, if you change your mind, let me know, but we'll start with Councillor Silovitz.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this discussion. As always, we have excellent discussions at this council bench, and they are very helpful. I just want to mention two things. So this is about two issues, basically. We're talking about the super mailboxes, and we're talking about the BIA. And again, I want to just make sure that it is completely understood that this is because of we have to do this because of a change in provincial policy. This is not the city saying this must be done. This is the province saying to all 444 municipalities in Ontario, this must be done. We must comply. It's very simple. Let's talk about the super mailboxes first. Remember also, and I think this is needed to be said in a public forum, that those where the super mailboxes are situated on those concrete platforms, that doesn't belong to us. That belongs to the federal government. Belongs to Canada Post. So I know that discussions have been had with Canada Post to put boxes there, to put recycling boxes there, but they would have to man them, clean them, and maintain them. So they've refused. So what we tried was a pilot program. I think it was 360 mailboxes that we tried this pilot program. And remember, this was a pilot program. So a pilot program, in essence, is saying, we're going to look how it goes, and then we'll make a decision as to whether it becomes actual policy. And there have been problems. There have been problems because the waste that is being put in the recycling bins is being contaminated. And most specifically, it's being contaminated with animal waste. And what happens is when it gets to the end of the process and it gets finally sorted and they find the animal waste, then everything is contaminated and it has to be thrown away. So we are defeating a purpose of recycling and being environmentally conscious by actually doing this. So I just feel that is extremely necessary to bring forward at this point. With regards to the BIA, while I absolutely understand, especially Councillor Liu, what you are saying, I completely understand that. I do also believe, once again, this is a change in provincial policy, and the municipality is doing our absolute best to formulate this so that it has the least negative effect on our residents and on our businesses. And I honestly believe that $365 a year for 2026, which is $1 a day. I think everybody spends more than that on a cup of coffee that they go buy from Starbucks or Tim Hortons. I don't believe that that is such an enormous pressure to these businesses. And as has been said, it's some of these businesses, there are multiple doors that exist within them. So I would ask that I acknowledge the letter written by the BIA, but I would ask that the BIA also continues discussions amongst themselves. And with all respect, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, perhaps the BIA needs to really get their head around that this is a service that the city will be supplying and maintaining. And that service, as with any other service, has to be paid for. So I honestly believe that, and I hope that internal discussions amongst the BIA will help smooth these waters, because the BIA, the village is unique. It's unique in position, it's unique in its heritage value, and it's very unique in the way it's designed. There is no space on those sidewalks. So we don't want to see that we get into a position like decades ago in New York City, where there was just garbage and rats everywhere. So we don't want that, because otherwise then the businesses will complain, because they have already. I know I sometimes get those calls, even though I'm a Ward 5 councillor, that, oh, someone's dumping garbage, or there's 50 bags of garbage outside someone's office. So we need to be very careful about what the actual pros and cons are here. And I'll finish up as quick as I can, Mr. Mayor, sorry. So we need to think about that, and the BIA needs to think about that, and we are doing our level best as a municipality to service the BIA and to service, to make sure that the village core is kept as neat and clean and tidy as possible. I don't know if anyone noticed, but a couple of nights ago, all the snow was removed from the village. From the machines went in, the plows went in.
Let's wrap up,
Yeah,
Councillor.
and that's a service as well. That is a service. So I have a wrap up.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to point those out, because I think it's very important as we move through the discussion with
Okay.
council.
Okay, thank you. That's okay. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think Councillor Silovitz, as the mover, has explained very well the uniqueness of the situation in the BIA. There's anyone after the 1930s, when the personal automobile was invented, a city was forced anyone on Yonge Street, any business, to accommodate garbage removal off of Yonge Street. And we can't stop on Yonge Street and collect the garbage. And if we don't do this, the city has to find another way at another expense to clean up a potential mess that's going to happen. So this is a cooperative way of collecting recycling in light of the provincial changes that have forced us to rearrange the way we're collecting recycling across the city. So I believe this exception has to be made. I think it's right to go to the tariff of fees process, where this council can every year decide in a budget context how we're going to pay for this service. It's an additional cost that we have to bear. The proposal is a 50-50 split between the benefactor and ourselves, and then we'll look at it year-to-year basis. I actually have one question, Mr. Mayor. Wouldn't the tariff of fees process be coming up in June for 2026? And we're making a decision here, but we're still going to be talking tariff of fees soon for 2026.
Yeah. Ms. Lee, she was nodding her head, but
Through the chair to Regional Councillor DePaula, that is correct. So we are intending to bring forward the tariff of fees for 2026 at the June BCW Budget Committee of the Whole.
Okay, so we'll make a decision here, but that tariff fees, I don't think we'd have to have a motion to reconsider. We still, we're gonna put this in as a placeholder to be the 365 a year, and then we'll evaluate this, including this year and every year thereafter. It's possible, and it's complete flexibility, and that's what it allows. And we might need to go for cost recovery because of the budget situation, and we might agree that since this group has no other way, that we have to provide this service, that the town picks up some of the costs or more slowly phases it in. They're not going to be happy, but the cost is split among, the owner is going to be charged, and then he's going to put this onto his tenants. And sometimes they really have multiple tenants. And the fact that there's a lot of residents, a lot of people live above these buildings. So each address is going to be assessed at 365, and it may go to even the residential rent, which would make them even more unique. They'd be the only ones in the city actually paying a specific price on to have the recycling service, which no other residents would have to do. I guess the condos have it in their condo fees, but the other question I wanted to ask is what about vacant properties in there? Isn't there a large landowner? And size doesn't matter, and doesn't, there's some people own a whole block, and are they getting the same 365 as a little shop?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the limit would still apply just as our residential program. So it doesn't matter on the size of the property. They would still have the 3 bags limit for garbage, and no limit on recycling on organics as we currently have there. So they're still limited by the 3 bags of garbage, and many of the properties will choose to have a waste bin, like a metal waste bin in the back of their property, if possible, if they need more space. So that's how that's typically handled.
It's per address. So if it is a vacant lot, too bad, you're an address, and you could potentially have recycling.
If it's a vacant lot and they're not using our service, I would imagine at that point we would not charge that property the fee. Something to work through, but
there's a little bit of work to do, and
right.
I guess that
They choose not to use our service, and then we can monitor and make sure that is the case. They have another way of dealing with it, or it's a vacant property. Then my expectations would be that they wouldn't have to pay that fee.
Okay. Well, each year through the tariff of fees process, we can look at those details and have that flexibility as we go forward. So I support the motion. I don't see there's a choice. I can't see voting against C. And where are we leaving these residents? Where are we going to leave those businesses? So it's definitely sufficient time to phase out the super mailbox recycling program. That's simply, it doesn't work. We can't do it. We can't absorb the cost of these. I mean, I for one can't support it. The cost outweighs the benefit, and it's a littering problem. Just concentrated a little bit where residents are grabbing their mail. So but it's no different than any other littering situation. It has to be dealt with as littering, and I think just because people have anonymity, they won't take responsibility for what they're putting in a blue box, but in their own home at the end of their driveway, they don't have the same anonymity, and they're a little more responsible. So that's the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Can I just clarify, we're talking about the city continuing to pick up blue box for the BIA, and now we're just figuring out who pays for it. Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be a good clarification. Yeah.
So for the argument that if we don't pay for it to be picked up, they're just going to put it in the garbage is ridiculous. The city is offering to pick it up. And frankly, that's a perk for a business. They don't have to go out and find a collector or figure out a third party to collect it, which every business in Oak Ridges has had to do. So the perk lies in the city being a very reliable service provider, and now we're deciding who pays for it. Well, it's not right that the businesses in Oak Ridges will not only pay for their own Blue Box pickup, but the businesses in Oak Ridges will now subsidize Blue Box pickup downtown Richmond Hill. That's just not right. I mean, to subsidize with tax dollars. And the other part that I want to wonder is when we phase something in, isn't this just another layer of administration to recover very little money? I'm not sure what it takes to do a phase in, but I mean, I'm sorry the province has put us in this position, but I think the service to the BIA will still be provided by the city, and the BIA businesses have to be responsible to pay for their Blue Boxes, just like every other business in Richmond Hill is expected to pay for their Blue Boxes. So I'm going to vote no against C. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, and I definitely appreciate all the conversation here. This has been a very good discussion. I got a couple of questions, and I may actually take the recommendation to move an amendment, but I guess my first question is that when we look at item B2, we are saying 88 businesses. Should that actually say properties?
Through you, Mr. Chair, actually, the clerk and I were just discussing that. B2 and C, if you want to be completely accurate, we should change the words businesses to properties.
Okay.
And if you're doing that, I would suggest further to Councillor Hsu's earlier question, maybe take out the actual 88 so that we have flexibility to vet the list and make sure it's the right number that's included.
Okay. And I think that's fair. Thank you very much for the
Councillor Thompson, sorry.
Chair, go ahead.
I would suggest we just do that as it's more accurate. It's not even a friendly amendment. It's just an accuracy thing, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I actually think if we just changed the references to business, what it should say is should be rateable business properties within the BIA. That aligns with the legislative language, and that would say there's no debate. That
Nobody's going to object to that, right?
No, as the mover, I completely agree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor, for pointing that out.
Okay. Number two, if we could get the motion back up. I had a couple more questions. So if you're going to amend, you might be doing some more amendments here. Okay, dokie. So in the meantime, should I be telling a dad joke?
No, no,
Absolutely not.
that's specifically against the procedural bylaw. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, much appreciated. So my next question would be in regards to the review of the tariff of fees. Would it not be correct that if we're doing a review of the tariff of fees, one of the items during that review would be whether to facilitate a full cost recovery or not? Would that be a fair assessment?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if C is approved, we would automatically put the 365 in the tariff of fees for this year, for 2026. And then next year, we would start the phase in, and we would propose another number in the next year's tariff of fees.
But my question through the chair is actually whether we need to specifically say here, facilitate phase into full cost recovery, if the facilitation of whether we, as part of the review, would that not be something that would be considered, whether we want to do full cost recovery or continue to subsidize.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct. In fact, that was in the staff report, page 7, already mentioned that we were going to be reviewing it in the tariff of fees each year. So, but this specifically is council directing us to do that. So
I
there's no
got it.
permanent-
And so when I said in round 1, we're already making a determination as to what that is instead of letting it go through the review process. That's my point here. So if I was to make an amendment here, I don't have a problem with, saying, having it reviewed, update annually through the tariff of fees. I just don't like the end of it where it says to facilitate phase into full cost recovery. My amendment would be to remove that.
Okay. I'm not clear on what's the difference because, I mean, we every year the tariff of fees comes to us with hundreds and hundreds of different fees, and council is free to choose how they want to, if they want to change any, adjust any, whatever. I mean, that is council's prerogative. I guess the point I was intending on this was that, this is to remind staff that we are going to be looking, the direction we're giving is that the intention is to move this to full cost recovery. Now, if for some reason, council decides to do something different, that's always council's prerogative. But at the end of the day, the direction that this is giving, in my mind, is that, council or staff will say in the following year's tariff of fees review that, oh, by the way, just a reminder, council, we talked about this particular fee and we were looking to phase it into full cost recovery. And so if you decide to do that, this is the full cost recovery, and we need to make a decision as to we're going to do it in 1 year or we're going to do it in longer. But I may have misunderstood what you said.
Thank you. So to answer your question in terms of difference, I would say the difference is that we're taking away any other option, which might have been to continue with subsidy.
But I don't think we are, because council can decide to not do it and do something different instead. Like, we always have the choice. Like, this is the intention that we're recommending that council decide to direct staff, that staff will do. We can choose, or we, being whoever is on the council at the time, can decide whether they're okay with that direction or they want another direction. But it's a signpost in the road for staff to put up at that point in time with the tariff of fees saying, a previous council said you're going to do this. Do you want to continue doing that, or do you want to do something different? But in fairness, every other fee that's on that tariff of fees bylaw could be changed by council at any time. That's their discretion.
Okay, and that's fair enough. I'll leave that alone. I won't ask for an amendment. As a matter of fact, there's no question that these particular properties are getting a benefit. Right now, we're just talking about the blue box and the recycling, but they're also getting their garbage picked up as well. So from a benefit side, yes, they're getting much more than the businesses in Oak Ridges. I don't dispute that. As a matter of fact, it does raise a bit of a question. You said properties are allowed, and now I know I'm going a little bit off of the blue box here, but you said the 3-bag limit. So it's by property and not by business. So when we have 3 businesses in a property, are we not still picking up all their garbage? Or is it that we're saying now to those 3 businesses in that property that, oh, by the way, this is the maximum you can put out there? I suspect we're already looking the other way, but perhaps you can clarify that for me.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do try our best to enforce that limit. The idea with that limit that council imposed is to force people to use the other streams, so recycling and organics, and manage their waste. So we only service businesses really in the downtown core, and we do our best there. Obviously, it's a little bit hard, as council has mentioned. It's hard to tell if the bags of garbage set out is from the residents above or from the businesses themselves. But to our best ability through Miller Waste, we try to limit that. And then if there's excessive waste at the curb for one business, we do monitoring, we speak to them, when we try to get them to comply.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I'll leave clause C as it is. I will end up supporting it in the end. Clause D, in regards to the super mailboxes, and Councillor Silovitz really, itemized this well. I mean, by not moving on this, we're just contributing to the problem. This is something where we're basically endorsing bad behavior. I think that we should not be delaying any further. I have an Eco Family Fest coming up on September 20th, and I'm trying to promote, to do the right things, and delaying being environmentally responsible is just not part of it. I think we have to get people to do the right things. Let's start that ad campaign right away and get it going. So if I was to make an amendment here, it would be to go back to what staff had originally proposed for January 2026. So that's what I would like to see as an amendment here.
Okay, Councillor Liu.
So this is an amendment.
Oh, are you doing an amendment?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Amend it and go back to what staff had originally recommended in the report for clause D.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify, just back to the exact staff recommendation, or do you want to maintain the clause as is, but just change the two dates? So 2026, 2025. So
I think you just want to move everything up a year, don't you?
Yeah, I don't want to wait till,
thank you.
yeah, I want us to start off on 2026. I don't want us to wait. So.
Thank you for the clarification. If I could request, is there a seconder for that before I type this up?
Yep. Seconder? Okay, Councillor Tree. Okay, you got it on the screen. Anything else?
Sorry, just doing a quick read here. Yes, that would be my amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so to the amendment then, and so Councillor Tree, you're going to second that?
Yes, so I think now is February, almost March, but we still have 10 months ahead of us. So I don't know how complex it's going to be, take your efforts. We did not talk with you, so this is maybe the time. So do you think it's going to be a very challenging time to get this done through this 10 months period? To our Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this was our original plan with the original staff report. The one thing is that the waste calendar has already gone out for this year, so that won't go out again until 2026. So that would be the only maybe caveat. But most of the public awareness would probably be at the super mailboxes, so that should be.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, anybody else on the amendment? Councillor Silovitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I agree with this. It's okay. And I was going to ask the same question as my colleague to Commissioner Steele, but this is as it was originally proposed. So I'm fine with that. And I agree with Councillor Thompson that everybody needs to be buying into this. So the quicker we get everybody to buy into this, the better. And I have absolutely no doubt that our staff will come up with a campaign, perhaps some signage at super mailboxes on our property where we can try to enforce what we want them to do. So thank you. I agree with this.
Okay, Councillor Liu?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As expected, I wouldn't be able to support this motion. I think, the way I'm seeing it is we are actually promoting recycling. Since we started the recycling, super mailbox recycling program, I don't receive any complaints. I only have people asking me for more. And that means it's working. And it's welcoming from the residents. And just wait and see when you don't have those, no matter how aggressively you do a public awareness campaign, once there is people littering near the super mailbox, I don't have an answer for the residents. And the bylaw that we have to enforce, and we have to have people go out there, and there's a cost. So for $42,900 just to keep it for another year, and we wouldn't like to spend that money, and we got to subsidize other businesses. Sorry, that's a no-no for me.
Okay, anybody else on the amendment? Regional Councillor DePaulo?
Thank you. I agree, actually with Councillor Liu, just because we're taking away a service that's in effect right now, it has to be done very, very, very carefully. I like the aggressive public awareness campaign being implemented in 2025. I'd like that to start right away. I'd like, because the awareness campaign, I think, is more general, not just the fact that this recycling bin that is going to be taken away. I think it's a general awareness campaign about anti-littering at super mailboxes, and the fact that it's it's federally regulated property. Please don't litter here. I want that, but with the I'm okay with the termination of the program being 2027. With that being January 1st, 2027, I understand exactly where Councilor Yu is coming from. The residents are really going to miss this this service. I started out last week suggesting that it be expanded. I know it's popular. It's something that our residents want, but I've learned in the interim that it's not something that we can afford, and it's abused to the point where it, as Councillor Silovitz said, contaminates recyclables and is abused. It's abused, and therefore it has to go. It can't be expanded. But I'm very sensitive to what the impact of taking away a service that residents currently have, and I would prefer this to be January 1st, 2027. Also, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else on the amendment? Okay, go ahead. Well, actually, no, you don't get a second round on an amendment. Anybody else? All right. I think we're in the weeds here, but and I say that with all respect. I mean, this is fine if this is what council wants to do. To be clear, the program, the public awareness program, which I agree with Councillor DePaulo, we need anyway, to help people to stop, to change their behavior and stop littering. And again, it's not a lot of people; it's only a few. That would have started probably in 2025 or so, somewhere around that time anyway. And that's really not the point. The point is that it would give us some time for the public awareness campaign not to be developed. That won't take very long, but for it to actually start to have an effect. So I don't think it's unreasonable, given that we've had this policy in place for quite some time, for us to be giving a bit more advance notice and time for the public awareness campaign to take effect, for us to get rid of it in 2027. It isn't going to cost us a bunch of money that we don't have, because we will be having savings from this program. So this is not going to affect the tax rate. But anyway, I think I was comfortable with the wording before the amendment, and I won't be able to support the amendment, but I appreciate that we have this in front of us. Okay, anybody else on that? Okay, so we have an amendment moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, recorded vote.
Through the chair, voting on the amendment moved by Councillor Thompson to amend Clause D. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hsu.
No.
Thank you. Regional and Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
No.
Thank you. Regional and Local Councillor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion, the amendment fails to carry.
Okay, we're back to the main motion then. Is there any other speakers on the main motion? Councillor,
It's my turn, right? I think.
oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It is your turn. Got it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can we have the motion back on the screen? I just wanted to actually appreciate, the council trying to the intention of council to find a solution here. And I want to thank the mayor for calling us and discuss and appreciate the adjustment here. And as I said last week, it's nothing to do with staff. This report makes perfect sense. It's just that there's another side for us to actually consider it. So this report, I have no problem with it, but there's a different point of view. So going back to number C, the tariff of fees process, I think we need an end game. So if the intention is to have full cost recovery, I think we should put that in. The only thing is the reality side of it. So every year we got to talk about this, and BI is going to come and say, no, I need full recovery. I need full subsidies. I don't want to pay half. And then what do? So even though there's an end game, I don't think we can achieve the end game. The other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong. So this is going to be put into the tariff of fees 2026. So that's the budget process. So what if council voted no on this during the tariff of fees budget process? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I understand the question correctly. So yes, our intention would be to put it in the tariff of fees this year for implementation January 1st, 2026. And you're saying, what if you didn't approve that fee in the tariff?
Yeah, because it's not happened yet, right?
Then they would get free service because you approved B2, which is the decision around whether to provide the service or not.
Then they will get full subsidies.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, good to know. And the other thing is, from what I'm seeing here is, so for every property, they have to pay $715 per year. And this also applies, the same applies to the other 23 non-eligible sources, which are the 14 religious institutions, 3 nonprofit, and 6 daycares. So what I'm seeing from the report is also $715 per year. Am I correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that is an estimate that's based on a quote that we got from a waste collection provider to pick up at an individual location.
Thank you.
So part of our review each year would be to check that with our
Okay,
supplier.
so the math here is $715 times 23, which is 16,445 to cover the other 23 non-eligible sources. Through you, Mr. Chair.
For stop costs for the
Okay.
businesses in the BIA and the nonprofits you were referring to.
Perfect. So we have 107,000 surplus savings. And this costs only 16,445. So 10% of the saving, and we can provide these 23.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that's the cost, but that's a completely different situation. I would remind you that the nonprofits, religious institutions, those are just sort of a random array of ones that we happen to be providing service now for various reasons that have developed over the years. And by funding those ones specifically, there's a lack of equitability across those groups.
So, but how far, if we gotta provide these 23 entities? Like the same that we're providing now, how much is it gonna cost? Through you, Mr. Chair? Because what I'm seeing from the report is $715 times 23.
Through you, that's correct. But remember, if you go back to the report and look up religious institutions, for example, those 23 represent only about 17% of all of the religious institutions in the city.
Not all churches are getting this, only a very, very select few for a number of kind of random reasons. But there are the majority of not-for-profits and religious institutions and others don't get it. It's just a bit of it's something we're dealing with because we're bringing this issue up, but it's been a historical thing that's on the books, and we're just correcting it now.
We're not providing the service already. This 23 is, we used to provide them, and then now we are terminating the service.
Through you,
I don't understand, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Right now, we provide service to those 23. Approval of E would mean that service is discontinued for the reasons outlined in the report, but predominantly because most of the organizations and institutions in those categories aren't receiving service right now. There's nothing exceptional about the 23, like there is the BIA businesses, which have some exceptions.
Okay, so what if I move an amendment that we include that 23 non-eligible sources?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
If I move an amendment that we also continue to provide the services to the 23, what is E? How do I do that?
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. If I understand, the proposed amendment is essentially what his proposal is not to enact Clause E. It's the opposite of Clause E. Am I correct?
Yes, okay, so that's another, okay, so it's
Right,
not.
so because if the motion on the floor right now is to discontinue the service.
Yeah.
If the counselor is suggesting that we continue the service, the correct course of action would be to vote against that clause.
Gotcha.
Well, your intention is that to continue delivering the service status quo at no cost.
Yes, okay, so I have to make an amendment on E.
No, I think if you just vote against E.
Yes.
Then it would be the same effect.
Yes. Yeah, through the chair, yes. If E fails to carry, what you are proposing would be the outcome. So that's why you actually can't do an amendment, because it's actually contrary to.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, gotcha. So I still agree with Councillor Davidson that, you know, I think we should let the BIA to have a chance to have their own management company and collect the recycling for them, just like any other businesses in Richmond Hill. And then, okay, I'm running out of time. I'm gonna move an amendment on D that we go to the status quo, which is one of the three options, option number 1 in the staff report, page 9. I don't want to put a termination date on it. I don't want to put an aggressive public awareness campaign date. I just wanted status quo until.
Okay, I think, Mr. Clerk, if you can correct me, but if D fails, that will be the outcome, will it not?
Yes, through the chair, yeah. If council fails to pass clause D, the current policy and program will remain exactly as is.
Yeah, and there'll be no change.
Be no change.
No. Okay. So not staff recommendation? So this is what in front of us.
Well, what you're trying to achieve is to not have the recycling program terminated at all, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if D fails, then that will be the outcome. And you know what?
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, I misspoke a little bit earlier, perhaps
All right.
based on that, because in fact, by not giving direction on that, we are giving direction, because the direction is that we'll continue to do it.
Okay, so, okay, I'm gonna vote against C, D, and E. So, okay, I understand. So unfortunately, I think, you know, we all have good intention, but this is a sad day. Because no matter what the outcome of today, nobody wins.
Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, I see Regional Local Councillor Chan with his hand up. Go ahead. You're muted, Councillor.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
I can now.
Thank you. I wasn't thinking about speaking because to me that I honestly think the mayor has done a good job where by beginning all this conversation, he did talk to me. I presume he mentioned he talked to other colleagues. So, but obviously, this is a moment that we all value in a democracy. We hear different perspectives, different views, but I have to concur with the mover and the seconder of today's motion. Because if you look at actually B2 relating to the BIA, D and E, we are all talking about that people or institutions, places that currently receiving services are either going to be discontinued, except the BIA is saying they have to pay for it in the end. I hope that maybe by year after 2026. So I agree with some of my colleagues saying anytime whether it's pilot or not, once you have the services roll out and take it back or discontinue, there will always be backlash. Let's face the truth, there will be backlash. So it's discomfort in doing this, I understand. And I do see the issue about optics, but at the end of the day, I think that we need to bite the bullet, so to speak, and take the courage to do what is the best circumstances in front of us. As many speakers before me said, we don't ask for this. It's the province that imposed this on us. So we really don't have much room to move. At the end of the day, it actually be savings. And it has been emphasized by the mayor a couple of times, is actually no tax rate implications. Now, mind you, I trust that particularly with D, and perhaps to some of us, E, we would be, as a council members, getting some reaction. And that's the part that part of our job to explain why we are doing what we're doing. So, Mr. Mayor, I just want to add my comments on this. I would say that I would be voting for this motion, noting that it's certainly components personally that if the circumstance is different, meaning province is not imposing this on us, might have a different kind of direction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for me to share my views. And thank you, my colleagues, for really advocating what you believe in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Clerk, I think we've exhausted the speaker list. You want to wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a quick wrap up. I know, I promise. Again, also, I want to thank everyone for this. It's been such a good discussion. And Councillor Liu, I completely understand where you're coming from. But I support the motion as it is. I do believe that on a personal professional note, all of us here sitting at this bench, okay, it's the end of February. We have enough time before January 26 that we can ensure that our residents understand what's coming their way. I don't believe that we are putting any kind of burden on them with this. And with regards to the BIA, just to clarify, because the word subsidy has cropped up here, through you, Mr. Chair, to either Commissioner Steele or Director Lee, no taxpayer subsidizing the BIA. The BIA are going to pay for this. Is that correct? There's no downloading here, is there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess it comes down to how you use the word subsidy. The 365 is only covering half of the actual cost.
Okay.
So it needs to, the other half is being covered somewhere, and it's being covered through tax rate.
Ah, okay. So it's only the half. Okay. Well, I have great faith that when we come to possible discussion of this through the budget process, that perhaps that can be discussed as well. But you're talking about a minimum amount of money until we can get them up to the full rate, and I have no problem with them being brought up to the full rate. As I said before, they are paying for a service. And just to close, I believe that while I totally respect if there are some of my colleagues who are not going to be voting for certain sections of this, I totally understand this, but I also believe, and I feel very strongly that I should say, that the motion as it sits right here, brought by me and seconded by Regional Councillor DePaulo, shows that we are acting in the very best interests of our residents and the city as a whole, as members of the board of the corporation of the city of Richmond Hill. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Clerk, I'm trying to think if we can do this in groups, but we can't. I think we have to do all sections separately, right?
Yeah, to the chair, I think that's probably, we did hear one specific request to separate out a specific clause, so I think it's best just to call the vote on each of the clauses is
I think so,
the
too.
cleanest way.
Yeah.
Can we record, please?
Yeah, it's already been called.
Okay.
Or has it? Yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
So in B, so that the city continue providing recycling collection services effective January 1st, 2026 to A, city facilities, and the second one is the BIA. So can we also separate that? Because I can't support B.
But no, but this is like, we have to continue to supply services. The question is, who pays for it? That's really the question here, is it not? I mean, it's up to
Up to
you.
me though, sorry.
Oh, okay, well, that's fine. Then we can separate out.
So thank you. Through the chair, what I can do, we don't generally like to separate clauses because it could create some challenges. However, what I think we can do for this vote would be when we vote on clause B, we actually deal with subclause 2 first.
Thank you.
And then the entire
Appreciate
clause.
it.
Okay, all right.
I think if we work in reverse order, then we're okay.
Okay.
Okay, just give me 1 second here, please. Voting on Clause A of the motion to receive the report, Councillor Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Clause A of the motion carries unanimously. Voting on just subclause 2 of Clause B related to the BIA. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Subclause 2 of Clause B carries unanimously. Voting on the remainder of Clause B, including subclause I, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson. Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. So subclause 1 carries only. Voting on Clause C of the motion. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Clause C of the motion carries only. Voting on Clause D of the motion, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan. Sorry, Regional Local Councillor Chan, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
No.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
No.
Thank you. Clause, hold on. Clause D of the motion carries only. Voting on Clause E of the motion, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Clause E of the motion carries only. Voting on Clause F of the motion, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. That clause F carries unanimously and the entire motion has carried.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, council, for that discussion. And moving along, the next item on the agenda is the response to February 12th, 2025 Made in Canada procurement policy. So at this time, I'd like to give up the chair to Regional Local Councillor DePaulo. And this is, I have a slight change I'd like to add to this motion. This is 15.3.
Okay, thank you. Resuming the chair now, we are on item 15.3, and I'll give the floor over to Mayor West.
Okay, thanks so much. So this was the staff report in response to the motion I put forward the other day about the, taking a look at our procurement policy to see if we can strengthen it and add some support given the threats of tariffs that are coming from the United States and still seem to be continuing to come. So this was an excellent staff report, and I want to thank staff for this. I think some of the highlights that I think we've discovered in that report is that we are already getting most of our procurement from Canadian sources, and I think that's great. And that wasn't unexpected. But I think in the staff report, staff have also looked at ways of possibly making the last few percentages that are not necessarily Canadian companies that are being successful in our procurement policies to become possibly more Canadian content in what we do. And I think as a municipality, given the threats that we're facing, this is a wise and prudent thing to do. I know that I had a recent call with the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, and the impacts that local economies are going to start seeing are huge. And I mean, we were talking about mayors from, Windsor, Cambridge, places where there's a high auto sector, Hamilton, where there's a significant steel manufacturing component. And, these places I think are going to get hit hard, and they're going to get hit fast. We were talking about the impact on places like Hamilton. I mean, it's going to be bad. What I said, I think about Richmond Hill is that, we're going to get hit, and it's just going to be a bit more of a slow burn, but we are not going to escape this as anybody else in Ontario will probably not escape it either. The one thing though that I would like, and it was mentioned in the staff report, but there is going to be a need in, now the procurement policy is one thing, and that's good, but there's going to be many other things that we're going to need to do to support our businesses. And one of the things that I would like to do as a slightly amended motion to put forward to council is a clause D, that staff be authorized to explore ways that the city can best support the Richmond Hill businesses community when the impacts of tariffs begin to affect local businesses. And, I'll leave it up to staff to, begin thinking about that and begin working on that, because when the time comes to roll out some of those supports, I want us to be ready with as little lag time as possible. But I think there are a number of things that I think we're going to need to do to support businesses. And, the Recover Richmond Hill Task Force that we had after the COVID is probably a good model for how we do this. But, staying in touch with our business organizations like the Richmond Hill Board of Trade and some of our big, small, and medium-sized businesses to get a sense of what their needs is going to be important. So I want staff to start thinking about that now. I don't want to delay and then put this motion forward later when, then there'll be a lag time. We know there's going to be impacts to our economy. We just don't know exactly what they're going to be now, but as we get closer and closer and have had more time to think about this, I think we are in a better position to recognize that. And I would like to thank Director Arulo and your team in economic development. I know that our staff has already been thinking about this and thinking about ways that we can support businesses. This upcoming trade mission to Germany, I mean, I see this as taking on another layer, not just trying to promote businesses to come to Richmond Hill, but also to find business clients for our businesses and new markets for their products. And I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that, as well as all the other stuff that we need to do during that time. But it's a range of different things that we need to be able to do for our businesses that are going to help Richmond Hill businesses get through this, and we will. But I think, we need to be able to set ourselves up so that we come out of the other end of this in a stronger and more resilient and more diversified, I think, way of doing business here in Richmond Hill and also in Ontario and Canada. So It's not a big amendment, but I just wanted to make it clear to staff that we as a council want them to start the process, because I am quite certain now that as time has gone on that we are going to need it here in Richmond Hill, and our business community will need it. So that's the motion in front of you. It's D that's different than the part that was in the staff report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mayor West. So, Councillor Silovich, you'd like to second?
Yes, I'll second. Thank you. That's a very good clause to add, and I believe that this is going to be very much needed. And I look forward to ways that we will be able to support our businesses as they all become under pressure and stress because of what is headed our way as a result of the United States President's call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers on this? Councillor Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the staff for putting this report together so efficiently. Just one question. Does the city have a rough estimate of the cost impact on the budget if we proceed your recommendations? Any rough idea for the cost impact?
The motion's going to have them reporting back on the impacts. But somebody, sorry, Madam Treasurer?
Through the chair to Councillor Shu, no, there will not be any financial implication from the recommendations.
Okay. I think this factors doesn't matter because it's about money. To see how much we can spend more to purchase made in Canada products, something like that. But if you don't have, so that's all about my comments. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say I'll be supporting this as well. I had some concerns, but you know, we are going to monitor the impact of this, and it's very important that this is where they are available, specifying goods or services made in Canada where they are available. I mean, if the province had this procurement policy, we wouldn't be getting a subway. But you know, so when there's an opportunity to go with a local company or a Canadian company, we'll be able to give them preference, and I believe that's the right move at this time. Okay, so we have a member motion on the floor from Mayor West. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, get the chair back to the mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next item, do we do emergency and time sensitive first before member motions or after? Okay, so the next item on the agenda then is the member motion by Councillor Silovich to request the redistribution of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. So Councillor, over to you, and we have a seconder. I think it's going to be Councillor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Clerk, can you put it on the screen, please? And when it is, can you please read it into the record? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to clarify for the councillor, I will put it on the screen and read it into the record. I won't be able to keep the entire motion on the screen. It's too long to do so. So I'll have to go through the pages.
That's okay.
Pardon me. So thank you. The motion reads as follows. Whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other critical services which are essential to community well-being and economic development. And whereas the current sources of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet these increasing demands for infrastructure investment. And whereas the province of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects the goods and service tax on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs. And whereas redistribution of a portion of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable and sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a new tax burden on residents or home buyers. And whereas a redistribution of a portion of the existing land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure activities, supporting local economic growth and improving the quality of life for residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Richmond Hill Council formally requests the provincial government to consider redistributing a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities. That Richmond Hill Council calls on the federal government to allocate a percentage of the GST collected on property sales to municipalities. That this redistribution of the land transfer tax and GST should be structured to provide predictable and sustainable funding to municipalities, allowing for better long-term planning and investment in infrastructure projects that benefit local communities, thus ensuring that local governments receive a fair share of the revenue to address critical infrastructure and program delivery needs. That this initiative be in addition to the efforts made by OBCM and AMO in addressing the funding shortfall of municipalities in a targeted and individualized manner to ensure funding sources are sustainable for all services provided by municipalities, including mental health and homelessness. That copies of this resolution be forwarded to the Prime Minister of Canada and local members of Parliament, and the Premier of Ontario and the Ontario Minister of Finance, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and members of provincial parliament following the provincial election on February 27, 2025. The copies of this resolution be forwarded to all 444 municipalities in Ontario, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for their endorsement and advocacy.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Appreciate it. The motion before us speaks for itself, I believe. It doesn't require much further discussion. This particular motion has been circulated by Aurora Mayor, Mr. Tom Marakis, and I will gladly move this forward so that Richmond Hill can sign on to this as well. I believe it's very necessary that all 444 municipalities of Ontario should be doing that, and I urge them to do so. We have a slight change amendment to his original motion, and that is in D of the therefore be it resolved. And our mayor can talk to that, but I'll gladly add that in. So just as a short background, over 180 municipalities have passed this important motion, which calls on the province to redistribute a portion of the land transfer tax and the federal government to allocate part of the GST on new home sales to municipalities. This movement continues to grow, and it reinforces the urgent need for predictable and sustainable infrastructure without placing the financial burden solely on our residents through increased property taxes. I think this is very important. Every municipality that adds its voice will strengthen this collective call for fair funding that ensures we can maintain and build the infrastructure our communities rely on. And together, we are demonstrating that municipalities across the province stand united in calling for a fair and sustainable funding model, and that one that supports growth without unfairly burdening property taxpayers. So that's my additions to what's before us, and I look forward to discussion at council, and I'm looking very forward to see what the outcome of this is. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor and Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second this motion. We're adding our voice to 180 other municipalities, but the key to it really is we're not asking other levels of government to introduce a new tax. We're not calling for a municipal land transfer tax to be implemented in our cities. So there's no impact of this call to action on the taxpayers, the one taxpayer. That there's no difference in what's currently being collected from the people in Ontario, but it's a consistent and reliable way to for municipalities to be able to to budget going forward for the infrastructure that we need. There's no question it's becoming evident here. It's extremely evident at the regional level that the infrastructure required for new housing the current formula is not sustainable, that development charges can no longer be expected to pay for the infrastructure for new houses and new communities. And in the absence of any proposal coming from the province, I think infrastructure in general can be talked about, but mental health and homelessness is specifically referenced here because the region is responsible for homelessness with no funding whatsoever to deal with this. What's reached a crisis level now in York Region and elsewhere in the province. So there needs to be another source of funding. There needs to be a consistent stream that municipalities can plan around, and it's also becoming evident that development charges cannot be increased further. We're already dangerously approaching the point where any increases in development charges will stifle the housing that is desperately needed. We're also in a supply crisis for housing in Ontario, which worsens every year with the number of people coming to Southern Ontario. So, if anything, municipalities have to look at decreasing development charges in order to stimulate some growth in housing, and particularly affordable housing. So, I think it's an excellent call because it's prudent, and it's not a burden on the taxpayer, but it's one possible solution for municipalities to solve a crisis that we're facing. And if the province doesn't listen to 180 municipalities, I think they will. They've got to either accept this and try to implement this, or have a different, or come forward with something. But nonetheless, the point has to be made to the province that the current funding structure for municipalities is not sustainable, not just in the very long term, but in the very near term as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this? Okay, I just very quickly, I mean, this is one of many motions that we've seen come forward that are good. I think they would be helpful for municipalities. I've been saying this for quite some time now that, municipalities, the way that the structure is right now with us over-relying on property tax and frankly, a system that was put in place over 100 years ago to fund the kinds of things that cities are now having to fund is completely unsustainable. And we've been saying this in one form or another for a very long time. And this is yet another example of this. The only concern I had with the motion that was put forward by Mayor Marakis, and I don't want to be critical, it's a good motion, is that this motion is yet another one-off it's a good idea, but it's a one-off. What we really need is a comprehensive review of the model itself, because as much as we tinker with this, the problem is that the system that we have in place with its over-reliance on property tax is just outdated. So I would really prefer at the end of the day to go with what AMO has, which is a comprehensive economic and social prosperity review. And I think that's really the absolute solution. And that's why I've asked Councillor Silovitz to put in clause D that just reminds whoever receives this at different levels of government that, that really is the ultimate answer. We can put some Band-Aids on, but there's a lot of Band-Aids already on, and I'm not so sure that Band-Aids are the solution right now. But I'll support this because I think it is a good opportunity, and this particular motion has gathered a lot of momentum in Ontario since it was introduced a while ago. We passed this at the region as well not too long ago. So anyway, I'll be happy to support this, and I thank Councillor for quarterbacking this. Is there any other people want to speak about this? Seeing none. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, Council, it's 11:45. We have an emergency and time-sensitive matter still in front of us, which I suspect might take some time. And we also have a closed session item that we need to deal with. And we are getting pretty close to the point where we need to take a break. What is everybody's feeling on that? Well, I'm asking council. I mean, we are obligated, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Yeah, to the chair, certainly as part of the amendments to the procedure bylaw for health and wellness, we would have to at least take a 15-minute break. But as we always like to point out, staff have been here as you as well, and it's probably very good for health and wellness actually to take a full lunch break as well at this time.
Okay, what's everybody's thoughts?
I'm good with 15 and we press on because I think we're keeping staff here. But I don't want to violate any labor.
All right.
issues.
Okay.
If that's okay with, our staff
Yeah.
have been here for so long, if that's okay with them, grab a sandwich and come back, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, well, let's do, let's say 10 after 12. We'll be back. Okay?